Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up, because today we're diving into one of the most bizarre, tense, and overlooked moments in military history. This is the story of how the felling of a poplar tree nearly led to World War III. This tale is one of anger, strategy, and a little something called Operation Paul Bunyan. I promise by the end of this video, you will look at trees and geopolitics very differently. Our story begins in 1976, in a place widely considered to be one of the tensest zones in the world, the Korean Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ. The DMZ is the thin strip of land separating North and South Korea, an area just 2.5 miles wide and 160 miles long, filled with soldiers, landmines, and an almost palpable sense of unease. It's guarded on both sides, and it's often referred to as one of the most dangerous borders in the world. Now, nestled within this geopolitical pressure cooker was a poplar tree. This wasn't just any tree. This 100-foot tall poplar stood near the Bridge of No Return, a location where prisoners of war once had to choose whether to stay in North Korea or defect to the south, knowing that their choice would be final. The tree became a visual obstruction for US soldiers stationed at a nearby observation post, limiting their ability to see up to the North Korean side. And that small inconvenience? Well, it soon turned into a deadly international incident. The date was August 18, 1976. Two American officers, Captain Arthur Boniface and First Lieutenant Mark Barrett, led a group of soldiers and workers to trim the branches of this bothersome tree. Armed only with axes and no weapons, the team thought this was a routine operation. After all, it was a tree. What could go wrong? But here's the thing. North Korea does not play by any conventional rulebook. As the Americans began working on the tree, a group of North Korean soldiers appeared. They were led by a man named Lieutenant Pak Chul, who was nicknamed the Bulldog for his aggressive demeanor. Pak Chul demanded the Americans stop pruning the tree, claiming it had been planted by none other than Kim Il-sung himself, the founder of North Korea. Defying the order, Captain Boniface waved the soldiers back to their work. What happened next was an eruption of violence no one could have predicted. Without warning, the North Korean soldiers attacked the US team, using their own axes as weapons. In a matter of minutes, both Captain Boniface and Lieutenant Barrett lay dead. Amid the chaos, the remaining Americans narrowly escaped to safety. The incident, later dubbed the Axe Murder Incident, sent shockwaves through the international community. World leaders were outraged, but North Korea brushed it off as a misunderstanding, even blaming the US for escalating tension. So, how do you respond to such an unprovoked and brutal act? Do you launch a counterattack? Declare war? In comes Operation Paul Bunyan, a military operation that would go down in history as the largest tree-cutting event ever undertaken under the shadow of nuclear war. President Gerald Ford and the US military weren't going to take this lying down. They needed to send a message, one of American strength and resolve, but without escalating into open conflict. The plan? Cut down that poplar tree entirely and do it in a way that would leave no doubt as to who was in control. On August the 21st, just 3 days after the grisly murders, the operation was set into motion. This wasn't just about cutting a tree. It was theater, a show of force calculated to intimidate North Korea and reassure allies. The effort involved over 800 soldiers, including South Korean forces and US troops, all armed to the teeth. There were jets flying overhead, heavily armed helicopters circling the area, and even B-52 bombers flying across the peninsula as a show of nuclear capability. Ground forces were backed by tanks, armored vehicles, and artillery. But that wasn't all. The US Navy parked its aircraft carriers nearby, while US Marines stood ready at strategic posts. And just to send an extra message, a 64-man South Korean Special Forces team arrived, armed with intimidating M16 rifles, explosives, and machetes. At sunrise, the operation began. Under the watchful eyes of the North Korean soldiers from a distance, a small team of engineers walked calmly to the tree, chainsaws in hand. They went to work, systematically cutting down the offending poplar while surrounded by this show of overwhelming force. The entire process lasted roughly 42 minutes, but every second was filled with tension. North Korean forces did nothing. What could they do? They were outmanned, outgunned, and undoubtedly stunned by the enormous show of force. The US military dissected the tree, cleared it out, and left only a stump behind, all without firing a single shot. Take that, geopolitics. The aftermath of Operation Paul Bunyan was fascinating. North Korea, realizing their mistake, issued a statement expressing regret, a rare move for the regime. The operation is seen as a textbook example of strategic military posturing, accomplishing a clear goal while avoiding outright war. More importantly, it became a pivotal moment in the history of the Korean DMZ, a reminder of how close the world can come to the brink of war over something as simple as a tree. So why does this story matter today? Apart from being a crazy anecdote you can use to impress your friends, Operation Paul Bunyan is a testament to the delicate balance of power, strategy, and resolve. It's a reminder that sometimes the loudest message can be delivered without a single bullet. Next time you hear ordinary stories about trees or militaries, think of this tale. A tree that triggered an international response unlike anything the world has ever seen. Until next time, keep uncovering history's hidden gems and stay curious.